Coach Womack was actually my college strength coach. I'm going to let him touch on a little bit more of himself here in just a second, but he spent over 20 years as a college strength and conditioning coach at the highest level with some of the best athletes in the world, and really has a strong impact on my career as he was my college strength coach. And at the time, I didn't even know this was a profession, and then when I got to Division II school and he started coaching me, it's opened up my eyes, and, I kind of followed in the same path down the line. But this one's really special too, because I would not be here with you guys tonight without him. So January of 2022, I believe, it was January, Coach Womack reached out to me as he was still in college football, and I was not at the time. I just left. And he said, hey, there's a couple of local college football officials that want to learn how to run better. They want somebody to help them get in shape. He had known that I had just started a speed development business in the Metroplex here in Dallas. And, he said, hey, I can't work with them, but do you want to, talk to these guys? And we didn't ever know where it would go anywhere, right? And some of you have heard this story before where I had talked to him. I didn't know if I would ever get paid from it. I didn't know what would ever come. And he actually opened up the doors for us and said, hey, you can come and meet these guys here at our facility and just get to know them and do whatever. So what happened was we spent 2.5 hours at his facility. I think he even said, hey, look, I'm out of here. Like, close the door behind you, please. And, here we are 3.5 years later. Runnin Ref has grown to 5 different sports, 5 different countries. Very, very grateful. Now we're able to be on here with you guys and Sony, travel all across and help officials everywhere. But without him, none of this would be possible. So my long-winded answer there, I'm going to let Coach Womack talk a little bit, and then we'll introduce a challenge, and then we'll start opening up strength and conditioning questions from an expert in the field.
Great to be on here. This is an honor. This is really exciting to see how Austin has taken this and grown with it and doing great things. And I'm excited to be here with you all today, and hopefully can share some my experiences or things to help you move forward. But I don't think I have much to do with it. I mean, I made one phone call, and that was it. And Austin kind of ran with it and did his thing. And so this is cool to see how far he's grown this, and I'm excited about the future of this company.
First off, one of the big things that we always talk about, and every official here knows it, is that officials are athletes, right? They stop, they start, they change directions. They don't get off the field on third down. They don't get a water break with 2 minutes left in the second quarter. They don't get, taken out and our baseball umpires in the second inning, right? So we talk about officials or athletes. We're trying to continue teaching them how they should train, and, obviously applaud them when they do really good things in training as well. But tell us a little bit about your philosophy in training athletes, and how you go about training athletes over the last 20 years to excel at the highest level and stay injury-free.
Yeah, we have several components that we try to focus on year-round. Now, year-round, we may focus on some more than others, but, strength is our foundation, and then you got speed and power. And we focus on movement efficiency and agility and conditioning and things. But like you said, injury prevention is one of those big components, along with recovery and nutrition. We try to tie that all in together. I'm still a big bench and squat and power clean guy, but I'm not tied to those exercises. There's things, there's different types of squat variations to use, and there's different types of power movements to use and things. And we do use different variations throughout the year. In season, I don't power clean anybody. There's just too much, the risk isn't worth the reward on that exercise in season for me, because of guys' wrists and things, at lower backs, and the amount of plays that they're on the field at the time and the collisions they're taking. So, we train differently kind of in season with that part, as far as our power movements and things, and emphasize those. But yeah, I would say, we try to keep it basic. The more basic we can be, the more intent we can give behind the exercises. I feel like if it's more complex, it's not as, the intent gets lost a little bit. But and then there's another side of it with our discipline and toughness is a big component of our program as well. So, especially when you're trying to mold a team together, and now in the age of where we're at in college football, it's just, your team's ever evolving. Every year you're getting, you could have 30 to 40 new players a semester sometimes, So you're always trying to mold your team together, especially with what your coach's vision is, your head coach's vision for the team. And so we're just an extension of him in the weight room.
We definitely do talk about officials getting good at movements and not having so much variety in training where they never get good at a squat or never get good at a bench press, that there's, enough of the foundational elements they can actually improve at that and, lo and behold, get better at something and actually get stronger. So that's, that's really cool that you touched on that. You touched on injury prevention a little bit. Okay. So one of the things that I had written down for you was, are there specific exercises you do with your athletes that officials can do to prevent injuries, or is it just about recovery only, right? Because some officials will just stretch and think that's injury preventative, or is it solely strength training? Tell us, kind of how you go about the injury prevention part of it.
Yeah, it's a big combination of all of it. Strength is a big injury prevention, and so is flexibility, and conditioning is probably one of the biggest components. But so you kind of have to see where you're at. With football, with what I'm working with, the main areas that you see that on the field that they get injured with are their, your feet, your ankles, your knees, our shoulders, neck. Soft tissue stuff is usually your groin and hamstrings. Kind of pre-season, you may run into some of that. Hopefully not, but those are some of the tendencies. So those are the things we're trying to, when it comes to our injury prevention exercises, is to more direct them to those areas.
I think all of our officials can relate to that stuff too. Everything you mentioned was
right.
Feet, calf, Achilles is a big one, knees and hamstrings. So everybody can relate to those things.
Yeah. Everything with running starts with your feet, right? And it just goes up the chain as you go. So, we try to use a lot of eccentric work early on in their phase. We do some isometric things with them as well. But, and we try to use a lot of those, or at least I do. It helps me with my flow of my workout is, some of the time in our warm-ups, we try to handle our injury prevention type movements, whether it be, if it's going to be a squat that day, let's make sure we prep the ankles and the knees and the glutes to fire and be ready and warm to handle that movement. So we're more efficient at it in the workout. If it's an upper body day, maybe we're going to work on more of the shoulder girdle and the scapula and in the back and things to kind of prime them for those movements as well. But, and that way we kind of get that in the warm up, we can coach it and get good quality work. And then it's time to get the meat and potatoes of the workout. It's just that, and we can focus on good movements and get them through. So, each workout will have some injury prevention type exercises in it, whether it be at a warm up or at the end of the workout, depending on what the workout is, the phase of the year, and what kind of movements and areas that we're focusing on.
You mentioned flow of the workout first off, and then you tie all those pieces together. Like you mentioned, it's not one exercise, it's a total system that, helps prevent those injuries. So you start with those injury preventative exercises that are going to help your session out essentially, right?
Right. Yeah, we like to do that. I mean, you can put them in anywhere. For me, I like to kind of do them in the warm up where we can have real good intent and focus on them. There's ways you can do them, between exercises as well. I just kind of think that for me and my atmosphere that I'm in, personally, it's not a problem. But when you got a big group of athletes, keeping them involved in the main lift, because you got a guy squatting. Well, he also has to have a spotter. You also have to have guys changing weight. I can't have a guy, down the line doing something and he's taking his eyes off his partner, because, we all have to kind of work in there together. You got 40 to 50 athletes in there at one time. So personally, though, I mean, you can get creative and do some injury prevention things in between your squat movement as you're resting. Maybe you can work on, a particular thing that you're focusing on. But we normally try to do ours within the warm up, and then at the end of the workout, we kind of finish with, some core exercises or a finisher or something like that.
How do you go about teaching proper form to prevent injuries?
We always push technique over weight. The weight will come, but if you don't have your proper technique down first, then, you're going to run a risk of injury, first of all, and then you're going to stall your results because you're just not using the proper mechanics to move weight. So, we show the exercise, we talk about it, we demonstrate it, and then we coach it. I've got coaches that are in the room with me, and everybody has a certain amount of racks that they're looking at. And, there's a lot of thought that goes in behind these workouts, especially in college and things when you're working with a big group in high school settings, pro settings. Safety's got to be number one. And then your exercise selection and flow and, the complexity of the workouts and things, they're really thought out. So everybody's in a safe training environment that's positive and you can, get good results out of. But we have everybody kind of spread out through the room as coaches, and we're coaching technique. And that's another reason too, kind of going back earlier as I was talking, that especially when it's a movement like a squat or anything that needs a lot of focus from a coach to athlete. That's why I like to just focus on the main movements as a coach and the athlete, so I can coach that exercise, because those other exercises are just as important, but I don't have my eyes on them, and I don't want to take my eyes off of somebody doing something that's supersetted with a squat movement that I can't watch when I need to be focused in on the main movement of the day.
What things do you focus on recovery-wise after a game and the next day? Now, your situation being a little bit different is you get one big event a week. So we do kind of talk to our football officials that we know maybe only do, professional or college level, as opposed to our basketball officials that may do 2 and 3 games a week. Some of our football officials do JV, high school, a certain level of college. So can you kind of relate that to recovery-wise in your setting, but then maybe also, hey, if I've got 3 games in a week, what can I do to help speed up that recovery process?
Sleep is your number one recovery tool. I think it's better than your post-workout protein shake, if you'll actually get enough sleep and do it the right way. Now the protein obviously is important as well, but I think your sleep, number one, your nutrition is going to play a big role in that. Your hydration levels, how much did you sweat after the game, or how much, did you expend, I guess you could say, as far as getting back good calories and protein in your body. And because that's kind of how we treat our first thing when they come off the field is, the first thing we're going to do is feed them and give them protein and, and start the recovery process that way. Then when we get home, now let's bring you out and start moving you around,
Like active recovery type of stuff, right?
Kind of active recovery. So, a big thing for us, we train the day after a game on a Sunday. We bring the guys in and we take them through a walking movement. Then we start to increase it a little bit to where they're, starting to move a little bit more. We do a lot of stretching. I do some isometrics on that day with them. And then I stride them out. We get a little bit of a condition. I wouldn't call it really conditioning, but we just stride out and get a good sweat broke. They're starting to already feel better as they come into the weight room because their bodies have been moving now. They've starting to sweat a little bit, and then we start getting in the weight room and get our main movements. And I tell you what, not everybody likes to do it on Sunday, but they always feel better on Monday and glad they did, So That's the hardest part, is just getting them going on Sunday, and they know that they're going to feel better tomorrow. So yeah, I would just say, your sleep, the best you can manage your schedule with that, your nutrition, any movement you can do, even though you're sore, movement is good. And the isometrics can help play a role in that too, where if you're really beat up and sore, you still get a little strength work without having to move a lot, So those can, and they're really good for your joints and tendons and things, especially for during the season.
We try to, influence, most officials to obviously move around the day after. They're getting, as the travel schedule in college football is the same, but some of these officials aren't getting home till late at night, and they have kids to wake up to the next morning. Encouraging them to try to do something, as you mentioned, it doesn't have to be a lot, but something to get your body flowing and get the joints open back up. And
another good thing I would recommend, is just go out for a walk. Just start walking, just get your body moving. And as you're walking, you're starting to get loosened up a little bit, and you're starting to get some sunlight on you. And then you can start to ease into it. It's easier from there to start moving into more dynamic movements after that.
We really try to help officials with, and, a lot of their issues training wise come from space and time, right? Officials have full-time jobs, most of them, even at the NFL level, in the professional levels, they have full-time jobs, they have families, so on and so forth, limited time to train. So with that being said, one big thing that we always try to teach them is about what their routine should look like. Having a routine, but tell us how important you think it is for them not only to just have a routine, but what type of routine would fit that lifestyle. Is a total body training routine fit, or is like an upper lower split going to help them more?
Gosh, I say a lot of things work, but I think it comes down to what will you do consistently, and that's where you got to find what works best for you, where you can stay consistent, because that's really the superpower of everything, is just being consistent. And so if you can, if an upper lower split works best for you, then I would say do it. But what you have to be aware of is that sometimes that upper lower split, you don't load too many exercises together. So let's say a leg day, you don't want to have 10 different leg exercises because it's lower body day and then you're sore and you can't recover from that workout. So, you kind of got to be smart with that. And I think the information that you provide helps allow them to kind of, the more they learn, the more they'll be able to develop their routine. But I think usually total bodies kind of, especially in your travel season, I think total body may be your better option, because if you do for some reason miss a day, at least you did hit the total body at least that one time, so I think that can be some advantage sometimes if, not everybody's schedules are the same and there's things that come up and, they're out of your control. But if you can stay consistently as much as you can, when that time does come, you shouldn't be thrown off your routine as much.
What kind of stuff can they do in their hotel rooms? Because, some of these officials will be traveling for work and having to get something in a hotel. So
right.
What do you think they can do there?
Some of my best workouts of the week are in the hotel. I don't know. I think just because it's different, it's outside of my setting and I can just kind of throw some different things together. But I enjoy the hotel workouts. Now it depends on what they have for equipment, if there's not, I did this for years until hotels kind of got better, as far as the equipment they have. But I would take a little band with me in my bag, and I could do some things in my hotel room.
Yeah.
And I also did some isometric work in the hotel room. So usually I always have a footstool or some type of cushion you can put your back leg onto, like a rear foot elevated split squat or something.
You get creative, right?
You got to get creative. And I would use my towel and just, put one foot on my towel and pull against it and push my foot into the ground and, do some isometric things. And then,
For any of our officials that don't know, what is an isometric exercise?
Well, there's two different kinds that are used the most. Now, yielding is kind of just holding a static position. And it can be any joint angle you really want to work on. But it's really like, you're getting a lot of work there, but you're not having to move through a full range of motion with your body. So those are good. You kind of hold them for time. It's just kind of time under tension exercise. Anywhere from 15 to 30 seconds is a good window. But it's all about effort and how much effort you can put into that. So those are good exercises, like a bottom half of a push-up hold where your chest is off the ground. You can tempo your reps with your push-ups. There's nothing wrong with your body weight. You'll always have that to work out with if you don't have any type of equipment that's, that you want to use, or the setup's not real good.
We've
and you
added
can always
that before into a challenge workout.
right. You can make your body weight as, really as hard as you want. It kind of depends on you. You can slow your tempo reps down and you can hold positions. And I've even put a towel over the door of the bathroom in the hotel and just hold myself at the top, on the door for an isometric chin up hold, So you kind of got to get creative. But if there is a hotel, usually the ones these days have pretty good equipment. They've got a treadmill in there usually, or they've got your dumbbells, cable stack machines. You may have to get a little creative, but they usually have enough weight. And if they don't, that's where you slow your tempo down on your exercises. If you're doing a dumbbell bench and it's just lighter weight than you're usually using, then just slow it down on the way down, like an eccentric, or hold at the bottom position. But I still think there's enough in the hotel that you can get a good workout in and do your your legs and your pushes and your pulls and a lot of things too is I like to run, go run sprints. There's usually a parking garage. You can do the little hill sprints in the parking garage all the way up. I think that's a good workout,
You're gonna add that into the next challenge, guys.
There you go. Right. So usually a parking garage near close sometimes. So where there's always stairs, I think it's just as long as you're disciplined and you're consistent and you want to find a way to get better, there's always a way.
This is the time of year where most officials are either starting their season, basketball officials, right?
Mhm.
Baseball officials have just ended. Football, soccer are getting to their tail ends as well. So people are going to have a lot of time before the holidays to think about this. But now it's going to give them something to get better at for their off season, right? They get to kind of debrief a little bit, enjoy the holidays with their family. But with that being said, how do you differ between in-season training and off-season training? Because I don't think most officials think of it like that. They think of, I'm going to work out, I need to do X, Y, and Z. But there's a big difference between having competitive games and being in an off-season type of setting.
Right. Yeah. So the off-setting or season setting for us is, we went from 2 days a week in the in-season lifting. Now we're going to go to, it could be 4 or 5 times a week now. So we're going to increase the days you're working out. The emphasis are going to be a little bit different now. And it kind of depends on the team I have, what it is. And I have to look at a schedule. When does spring football start? How many weeks do I have to get them ready for that phase?
That's normal for them too, with camps and clinics as well, right? They've got to be
Correct.
able to prioritize that and say, I've got camps coming up. So very similar.
Yeah. So, you find when you have to be ready again, and you may not be, I don't say you have to be in game shape, for us anyways in spring football, but we have to be prepared for those movements that they're about to go do and be able to withstand the 15 practices they're going to have and the contact. And so we have to get them back ready for that. But the off season is a time for us to, obviously the body's got to recover. They went through an extended period of hitting and their bodies are pretty beat up and things. So it's a time of recovery, but it's also a time of, let's get them back strong. Let's try to put some muscle mass back on them, or guys that need it. Maybe there's some guys that we need to lose some weight. Maybe it's some guys that, they just got to do better of just getting more in a physical conditioning. But usually we start off the front phase of the year as more strength oriented foundation. Then we start to add our conditioning and running and our movements and things as we get closer to spring football. So we have those guys ready to be able to go through that phase of the year and withstand 15 practices and make sure their muscles and joints and things are ready to do that.
Yeah, I mean, very similar. A lot of our officials have preseason scrimmages and things that they work. So that's and they don't get as many snaps or as much time on the court or whatever it may be. So it's
Correct.
very similar. It's like they're prep for the games. So
Right. That's the thing. It's just, we're trying to, gosh, it's changed a lot over the few years now, but our off seasons are, kind of got to see what kind of team you have. You're going to get some new people in, right? But then it's just preparing, like, hey, we got to get these guys, their work capacity back. We need to get some muscle on them. We need to get them strong. And then we got to start moving them and getting their bodies conditioned to withstand practices, but then the movements that they're going to do, the running, the cutting, the hitting and things. And so, and you got to prepare their ankles and their feet and their groins and all that stuff to handle all that stuff. So it takes a lot of planning out to do, but you can't do it all at one time. We just kind of use little, if you have an 8-week period there, we're going to gradually increase everything as we go till we get to that time period.
Rob asked if you do a hypertrophy phase before strength. So I think this can kind of be a little open forum, and I think most officials can resonate with this, but I think a lot of people think of block training as like, this time of year, I need to be doing a hypertrophy phase and grow muscle mass. And then this time of year, I need to get away from that and I need to just focus on conditioning, right? Well, I'll let you elaborate on that a little bit.
Those are good thoughts. We don't necessarily do that here. I don't have the time to do that. And I don't think that's really the optimal way to train. I think you can do it all at the same time. You just have to be smart on how you do it. So I'll give you an example. If you're going to do a squat and bench, for example, and you want to maintain, you're looking for strength in that workout, and you're doing 5 sets of 5 and you're working up to there. And then you use your other movements in your workout would be you could say your assistance exercises or auxiliary movements, whatever you want to call those. That's where you can kind of work on your hypertrophy with those exercises in your 8 to 12 rep ranges with that though. And then you still conditioning it all at the same time, so
Can't ever get away from.
you can't get away from conditioning. I think you can maintain strength longer than anything, but you lose your conditioning faster. And especially with some of the guys I train, it takes takes longer for them to get in shape, but they're the first ones to get out of shape too, so it's like you just got to kind of stay with it year round. Now some phases may be more intense than others, but you still got to do it. You can't get away from that. It's easier to always be in shape than get out of shape and try to get back in shape.
Said, hey, I take a week off and I'll lose a month of progress. Well,
yeah, right.
It's very
Exactly
realistic
right.
for our officials. They're getting older. The kids stay the same age, essentially, right? And
Yeah,
take time off. It's harder to get it back.
that's why consistency is so. I think that's if you can get that down, as long as you're always doing something, no matter how your schedule changes, the ups and downs of it, if you're just making sure you're disciplined enough to continue to be consistent, I think you're going to be able to go a long ways. And when something does come up, you'll be able to get back on track a little faster, Sir.
Thing that you see people do a lot of when it comes to fitness that you feel like there's not a lot of upside to it, but maybe it's just popular for whatever reason. And on the flip side of it, what's something that you feel like there's a lot of value to be gained, but it's often overlooked or underutilized?
I think everybody just kind of, they see a picture or a video of somebody in really good shape doing something. They're like, well, I need to do that, and maybe they do, but also you got to realize like what can you do efficiently and consistently to make good gains and then also recover from too, so I think long distance running is not for everybody. I think it can break down a lot of times. Yeah, I think it can break down a lot of bodies and just, I don't think you have good running mechanics while you're doing it. I don't think you're sufficient unless, and I'm not saying it's bad. There's just people that are more efficient and better at it. And I don't think it's for everybody, So I think people could do more interval type training and really strength training and be better off than I think trying to lose weight. People think, oh, I got to go run. Well, I think you need to lift. I think you need to do some strength training too. I think you're going to get more benefits out of that than you think you may just running. And then adding some conditioning components in with it, whether it be on the treadmill or running or on a type of machine or an air bike or something like that. But I think the interval type training you can do, and I still think you need some cardiovascular component as well, but it don't need to be all the time. I think you can separate those days where you can have a cardiovascular day and, there's nothing wrong with getting on the Stairmaster for 20 minutes, for a certain period, maybe a day out of the week, that's okay. But I would add that in on your leg day, on your workout, to kind of finish, to kind of give you the best of both worlds. Now you got some strength training in the front end and some cardiovascular in the back end while it's still leg oriented, but I don't think you just always have to go pound the pavement, if that makes sense.
Anything that's underutilized, something in training that you're like, hey, I love this, but not enough athletes utilize it.
I don't know if people sprint enough. Now you got it. That's a tricky one to get with, you got to be prepared to sprint, but I think as far
as I want
as
you to hit on that actually real quick. I'm sorry to change that, but
yeah.
We do talk to our officials a lot about Achilles, injury prevention, Achilles specifically. We don't see as many hamstrings, or we don't harp on it quite as much as we do the Achilles, right? When you're not prepared to sprint, as you just mentioned, and you take off, that's where we oftentimes see a lot of those Achilles, whether it be tendonitis or some of these nasty ruptures that are going on. Well, you're talking about being prepared to sprint. Sometimes our officials, the first time that they're ready to sprint, and when we say sprint, full speed run in game is in game. So I'm just could you hit on that just a little bit about, hey guys, like this may be viable for you to add in once a week, or as you get closer and closer to your season for those reasons?
Yeah, I think sprinting once a week is plenty, but I think you need to do it. That's kind of like one of those things. If if you don't use it, you lose it type deal. Kind of with jumping as well. Especially as older as we get, we start to lose that elasticity, and we're just not doing it enough. So but preparing, to be able to do that, I think one good sprint workout a week would be plenty to be able to maintain your sprint ability. And it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be a lot, but if you go out and run a few 10-meter sprints or 15 and 20-meter sprints, that'll be enough to kind of hold you over the season, as long as you're still kind of doing your conditioning work as well.
I'm interested to hear your thoughts about this as well. And Austin, if you want to give a preamble to any of this, like in terms of some of the things that we've talked about before on footwear, if that's helpful. But yeah, just interested to hear Coach's your thoughts on footwear. If there's any things out there that folks should be thinking about, they should be avoiding, they should be looking for, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a tough one, because I think you can see a lot of, over the last, 10, 15 years, I would say it's increasingly the injuries that we've been getting in the foot and ankle, Achilles. I think footwear and playing surfaces are a lot to have to do with that. A lot of our shoes now are very narrow, and there's not a lot of room for our foot to kind of spread out and grab the ground and things. And now they're all making big heels that are elevated, and so it's I don't think our footwear is going in the right direction as our training and everything is advancing. I think our footwear is it's not advancing with us, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's a tough one. I think you got to find a comfortable shoe for you. It's got to give you some support, but it's got to also let your foot kind of spread out a little bit to be able to kind of grab the ground a little bit and push. So that heel that's so elevated these days, you're just not getting any extension in your foot now. And those, and then another thing that we have, everybody wears slides these days, and they're just shuffling their feet around, and we're never getting the extension. We're never working our Achilles and calves and our arches of our feet. And so it's kind of the more you can work your feet now these days, if you never pull your shoes off and get outside and kind of do some of your movements and mobility sessions barefooted, I think is good. I think doing some of your low level plyometric exercises are even probably beneficial too, like your pogo type jumps and things. But yeah, I think footwear is becoming a problem in our surfaces. I don't know what we need to do about to fix it, but you are starting to see some fractures and some foots, like some Jones fractures and some things that, that's feet are just so crammed up in there. And I'm not saying that's the reason behind it all, but it is concerning. I would say, it does make you think about it for sure.
Officials are even more limited than anyone else because they have to be certain color schemes and so much black and not enough, so
you're right.
Even more requirements on that and
certain brands, and
it's not a perfect world, which I'm so glad Sony said that. Actually, it kind of made me laugh because every single session we've done on here or even in person at Ref Masters camps in the past, someone's always asking, and I always say, what, Sony? We're going to get to this one day, but I don't have a solution yet. So
yeah, you're right. And I don't know what that is yet, but I think it's being more and more looked at for sure. I think the red flags are being raised about, hey, what's going on with this? Because, it seems like we're still having some of these problems and they're not going away. And I feel like we've been trying our best in our side of the profession to kind of help, but
we can't control Nike, huh?
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is. And
some brands guys won't listen to us.
Some shoes are better than others, obviously, and then you're tied to, whatever team you're with, you have to wear this certain brand, and the referees are sure the same way. And so, yeah, kind of becomes a problem. I say get out of them as fast as you can. and get your feet moving back again. You know, I can't wait after some of our games to take them shoes off and walk around barefoot a little bit and get my feet stretched back out. So, and I just have to stand in them. I don't even have to run in, you know, so.
I'm on this call right now, if I'm watching this recording, there's a good chance that I'm pretty into my fitness already. And there's also a pretty good chance that sometimes I overdo it. And my question is about the signs of overtraining, because sometimes we ignore the signs of overtraining because, you know, ego, because discipline, desire to kind of try to squeeze every bit that we can out of our body, right? And so what are some of the signs, the things that if I'm an official, I should be looking for either while I'm training, while I'm working a game, or anywhere in between that make me go, okay, maybe I'm overdoing it a little bit. Maybe I need to rethink how I'm going about my fitness regimen.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, you know, I think your body will tell you. You got to listen to your body. You know, you may feel more tired than normal. Maybe you feel like you're always sore. You're just not being able to recover. Maybe you get into your workouts and, man, I'm out of breath faster, or I'm, you know, kind of weaker. I'm not moving the weight. My progress is kind of stalled out. You know, those are usually signs to kind of be looking for, to, you know, and check your body. You know, I think it's still good to weigh yourself and kind of see where you're at, see what your body weight's kind of telling you as well. But those are good signs to look out for. And there's nothing wrong with, you know, change a few things in there. You know, we like to, you know, I have basic movements I stick with, but they're movements, and there's a lot of, you can still move the same way and change the variations of the exercise to kind of give you a little bit of a different stimulus, or also just a little bit of variation to kind of, you know, you still want to make it fun. You don't want to be doing the same movements all the time. It gets kind of monotonous, and you want to have progress. And so it's nice to change up the exercises and feel a different movement or a variation from, you know, from maybe it's a barbell to a dumbbell, or a single leg movement from your bilateral movement. You know, you're still kind of doing a same type of movement, but it's just different, you know, and that gives them some variety and gives a little bit of a change that your body may need.
It's helpful, really helpful. Anything else in there to add, Austin? It's really good.
No, I think that's a great point. The large fluctuations in body weight, right? I mean, we all know that the scale only tells us so much, but large fluctuations are going to tell us something. I think obviously you know, being drained and heavy bags under your eyes and the poor sleep, you know, obviously give you some signs.
And you look at your nutrition. I mean, are you eating enough protein? Are you getting enough carbohydrates? You know, are you covering, you know, you know, or is your nutrition kind of taking a back seat and now you're feeling different, you know?
Yeah. And it doesn't always mean that you're doing anything wrong either. You know, it's the ebbs and flows of training and competition, right? It could be that I'm in a really tough training cycle right now. That's what, in, you know, our world, that's what we try to get them to, right? Every 3 to 4 weeks, we're trying to almost push them over the edge. And then once they recover and they come back even better, faster, bigger, stronger. So that's the things about training that I want to be able to teach people. And I'm glad that you kind of brought up, because people don't understand the ebbs and flows, and that's okay. But yeah, those are telltale signs that, hey, I need to adjust something in training, or I need a little better sleep, or I don't know, maybe I need to drink more water. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And in my environment, you know, I'm looking at our guys and kind of eyeballing them all the time and asking them questions and how are you feeling? And if sometimes you can feel like, oh man, I had this penciled in to be kind of a week, I deload them, but man, we're on fire. Let's keep going, you know, or it could be the other way. Like, oh man, I was wanting to hit this, but our guys, they're in the tank right now. I need to back off, you know? So, you kind of got to just kind of read your body. I think it'll tell you, you know?
Yeah, no doubt. Sony's got a fun one for you here.
Okay.
Sony's got a good one.
What distinguishes a good ref from a not so good ref from your vantage point as a coach?
Ooh, okay. You know, I could go a lot of different ways on that one, but I think just consistency, you know? I think the way you call both sides of the field, you know, or both sides of the team consistently, then I think that distinguishes the good ones, you know?
Consistency. Yeah, we hear that a lot, right? Call it the same
Right.
both ways.
All
You
the
know?
same both ways. If you're consistent, consistently good or consistently bad, whichever one it is, at least you're consistent, right? So yeah.
Helpful for us all to take forward with us.
Well, that's been the theme of the night is consistency.
That's true.
Yeah, I like to tell, I like to say that to our guys, I tell them it's a superpower if you can be consistent with, whatever it is you're doing, whether it's
Anything in
your,
life.
yeah, how you do anything is how you do everything, right? So if you can be consistent, not only in your training, but outside of your own personal life too, it'll carry over,
How you do anything is how you do everything. We have a saying here at Ref Masters, run and ref, we say, let's get to running. At Ref Masters, we use the word run also. We say run the game because that's what good officials do is they run the game. So as we depart, we always have one person give us a send-off by saying run the game with the passion and conviction of a high-level athlete. So Zach, as our special guest tonight, could you do us the honors of sending us off?
Oh yeah. All right, here we go. Run the game.